Depression is one of the psychiatric illnesses that is seen in the geriatric age group that we're discussing today. So, one should know how to deal with these depressive episodes. The risk factors we've already discussed, these are the environmental risk factors that can play a pivotal role in the development of these severe depressive episodes. So while we are taking a history, you have a patient in your outpatient department or in your ward rounds, and you are basically diagnosing this patient as suffering from severe depression or even the mild or the moderate forms of depression. One should know how to deal and go about or manage such cases of depression again over here. The treatment guidelines will be discussed over here, the different treatment modalities that we can approach to while we are treating these patients, because the intervening is very important because it's basically hindering the lifestyle of the individual. Obviously, it depends upon the severity of the disease, whether the person is suffering from the mild, moderate, or severe form of the disease. And we have to basically select the type of the treatment modality according to the severity of the disease that the person is suffering from. So we'll be discussing all of this over here in this section. First of all, the causative factors will be discussed in detail. Moving on, we'll be discussing the risk factors that make the person more prone to the development of the depression. And finally, the suicidal intentions, the suicidal thoughts are basically the primary factors of the severe depression that have to be treated. Then the treatment guidelines, what are the different treatment modalities at hand that we can choose from while we are treating a patient of depression over here. So is it due to dementia? If the person is suffering from dementia due to some sort of an organic cause, it can again lead to delirium or the depressive episodes. A high rate of depression than the general population is seen in these individuals who are suffering from dementia. There is a wearing intensity in almost 50% of the population. Alzheimer's range from almost 0 to 87% of the population over here. Mild to moderate stages report to depression in these individuals. Then we have the Cornell's scale for the depression in the dementia. So if depression is caused due to dementia, it's basically a questionnaire on which we basically scale the individual as to the intensity of the disease is scaled over there, whether he's suffering from a mild, moderate, or a severe form of dementia, and then subsequently depression is assessed in these individuals. Useful for the moderate to the severe dementias. The differential diagnosis in these individuals who are suffering from depression is the symptoms are basically assessed. Sometimes they are overlapping. We have patients of Alzheimer's, basically they have less appetite and little concentration and isolation. So these are the key features for depression. So people suffering from Alzheimer's can be misdiagnosed as suffering from depression, although they are suffering from another autoimmune disease, which is basically known as the Alzheimer's disease. So Parkinson's patient are also assessed over here. Loose affect or slowed speech and movements are seen in these individuals. Then we have patients with frontal lobe injuries and they present with apathy. That is an inertia or a low mood and low effectiveness is seen in these individuals. Frequent crying that is not related to mood is also seen in these individuals. So we have a differential diagnosis of dementia, Alzheimer's patients, Parkinson's patients, and then we have patients of the frontal lobe injuries that will also present with similar signs and symptoms of depression. So differentiating these patients over here is again very important. The diagnosis will be made on the frequent dysfunctional, sad, downcast mood, new agitation, and sudden loss of interest is seen in these individuals. Then we have the psychic rather than vegetative features seen. Report from the caregiver, past medical, and the psychiatric history is also assessed in these individuals. So all of these factors we are going to assess basically whether the person is suffering from depression or is it some sort of an other disease that we've already listed down the differential diagnosis in case of the person who is suffering from depression. The treatment guidelines over here are, if unsure, treat for depression. Medications are more safer these days. ECT is a viable option that should be thought about when we are treating patients with depression, more worse if left untreated. So the intervening is very important because these patients have suicidal thoughts and suicidal intentions. They have loss of energy and apathy. All of these symptoms are going to make the condition more severe. If the person is suffering from a moderate condition, it can lead to a severe form of the disease. Early interventions are more effective, and the results are more positive when we early intervene through this disease of depression. So the options that we have for the treatment guidelines are, we have the SSRIs. They are the most common drugs prescribed for such a condition, ranging from fluoxetine, sertraline, paroxetine, fluvoxamine, citalopram, and escitalopram. So all of these drugs are included in the group of the SSRIs. And then we have the SNRIs, that is the venlafaxine and duloxetine. So these are the two most common drugs. Then we have the other drugs that are included are the mirtazapine, we have bupropion, and we have trazodone. The tricyclics, nortriptylines, or the MAO inhibitors, that is the monoamine oxidase inhibitors, they are also included. For example, the selagelene patch is quite commonly used these days. Psychotherapies, including the cognitive, behavioral, and interpersonal therapies that can be the manual driven, they're easy to study and effective in combination and alone. On the other hand, we have the psychodynamics, that is the long-term issues, and they're less studied over here. Then we have the problem solving and the supportive techniques. That is basically usually these problem solving techniques are done for the mild to moderate dementias as well as coping for day-to-day activities. So ECTs are done quite frequently. It works rapidly for those who can't wait. The psychotic depression is treated, and especially the maintenance treatment is given for these individuals. The hospital venues are quite commonly used, ranging from anesthesias, 30 to 60-second seizures, or 6 to 12 treatments are done in these individuals. Then we have the adverse effects are quite minimal in these conditions. So we basically if we want to conduct these electroconvulsive therapies in these individuals, the adverse effects are quite minimal. Usually it is quite a notorious option, but one should know that they have the least side effects. The short-term memory loss is seen in some of the individual that lasts for more than 2 months, and then we have the mortality rate of 0.01%. So it's quite an effective option that we can go for. Then basically the electroconvulsive therapy, it has won a Nobel Prize in medicine. The cerebrovascular contraction, increased blood-brain barrier permeability, then we have the increased brain oxygen concentrations, and no absolute contraindications such as a relative brain tumor. The myocardial infarction in lasts 3 to 6 months, and the response level is almost 90%. Trick is maintaining the response. So in this section, basically, we dealt with a very common affective disorder, which is known as depression in the geriatric age group. So that is the end of this section. Thank you for watching Scadia.com.